measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken. We just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and vegs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat earth king of rhyme.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now, we are joined by Neil, Len, Surf Daddy, Click OK, and a whole bunch of people in the Flipside Discord server. So, welcome one and all.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Hello, hello.
Hello, I'm good. I've been editing a video together, which I haven't quite got done in time to actually have uploaded for people who are members. So I think I'm going to name it something to do with Pearl and 50 Cent, who was the rapper I couldn't remember the name of yesterday when I was talking about Whistle While You Work. So I couldn't find the shorts video either. I was really frustrated with myself. I spent about 25 minutes looking for the damn thing in all of my history to see if I could find this 50 Cent interview where he's on a mainstream American chat show. And he's explaining that he works a lot because it doesn't seem like work if you love what you do. And as soon as he said it, it gave me goosebumps because I'm like, I love what I do. And, you know, if I was only here for the money, I'd have quit 12 years ago because there isn't any, right? It's very low in terms of that reward for what is essentially the dream job of a 12-year-old, you know, to be a YouTuber. I can totally relate when my eldest daughter's trying to break into the YouTube world with her 15 subscribers or whatever she's got. I'm sure at some point I'll do a plug for her. Go ahead, Neil.
I don't know any rapper named 50. I know a Fiddy.
If he was British, he'd be called 50 Pence.
Fiddy Pence.
50 Pence. But anyway, hopefully I've spelled cent correctly when I note it in the edited video that I've made. Like I say, I finished editing it. I just didn't manage to get it uploaded. I will do that after we finish today's live stream. But I'll name it Pearl and 50 Cent, or it was about having your name in lights, basically about having fame, because I'm about to release a book, and there might be a sentiment that, oh my God, I got a book coming out, suddenly I'll have my name in lights and there'll be ticker tape parades, and you're like, no, get a grip, right? Even though I've put a huge amount of work and time and effort into producing what is hopefully going to be released in the next couple of weeks, it's a lot more in depth now. I'm actually in touch with the publicist. He's, you know, telling me I need this, I need that, I need the other, and you're like, oh, right, okay, so it isn't just as simple as stick it out once it's finished being written. There are other I's that need dotting and T's that need crossing that aren't directly related to the text. You're like, I see. Because initially he just gave me a date. He was like, it should be out by the end of the month. But you're like, okay, well, let's just do it. What else do I need to do to get it even shorter in terms of the time frame? And then when things come onto your desk, you're like, oh, okay, that does require work. As an example, so we've got Len here. I sent off a cover art for the ebook, and he was like, no, it needs to be in XYZ DPI and resolution. I'm like, that's what I sent you it in. He's like, no, you haven't. You've sent it me in this resolution. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I thought I'd done the correct job. I'll ask one of my compadres on the panel to also produce it, and I'll have another bash. So I've then sent it out to him today in a format that I've produced and a format that Len has produced, hopefully that will actually reach him via email in the correct resolution for the ebook. But like little things like this, along with a whole bunch of other stuff that's very boring, sort of compounds the amount of time that it actually takes to come out, leaving me in the situation for 2 straight months saying, just a couple more weeks. Just a couple more weeks. But it's one of those. About a month ago, I was saying it's going to be a couple more weeks. It's like when you've got a Guinness and you filled it 2/3 of the way and set it on the bar. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the process of pouring Guinness, you're looking at it going, well, do I take it? What do I do? And the barman's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's got to settle. Now, by settle, in metaphor, that's actually lots of work. You know, there's little things that need to be done in order to put out a professional looking, I mean, I've never written a book before, but you know what I mean, a professional product. So, you know, it will be here literally in a couple of weeks, hopefully less than that. It might be 10 days, you never know. But it's on the genuine last countdown, having finished writing it and passing it on to the publicist who's going to eventually publish the damn thing. And it'll eventually, presumably with very little fanfare when it first comes out, start generating a little bit of revenue for me, which is the whole purpose of that. Back to the original point, I've enjoyed the process. I was saying this on yesterday's show. It's gone through a tumultuous birth, but that doesn't change the fact that every step of the way was enjoyable while I was doing it. You know, there were certain parts that were tedious and dragged out for the purposes of theft, but, you know, aside from that, that in even of itself has gone into the book as part of the book's content. You know, so in some ways, a betrayal that's delayed the process has actually been, you know, beneficial in some small way to the end product, as it's formed literally part of a chapter titled Betrayal. And that is part and parcel of life in general that is relatable on a level that most people who are reading about a concept, an idea of flat Earth itself, can digest in a way that is unilaterally applicable to anybody who's reading it. So, you know, people like the sex, drugs, rock and roll, and in this case, betrayal, that life in general throws at most people. So, you know, it's nice to be a blank canvas initially, get betrayed, seems terrible in the moment, to then turn that into fruit. You know, it's just a compost heap to have a nice, beautiful rose grow out of. And that's what's happened. So from that perspective, to come back to 50 Cent, or Fiddy Cent, his general attitude while he's smiling and answering the question is to say, I like what I do. That's why it looks from the outside's view like I'm just working all the time. You're like, well, no, I'm just existing and I like existing. Now, that happens to be work. And for me, it's the same. I like doing this, right? This is the dream. I am living the dream. And if someone turns around and goes, but you're always having to e-beg, you're really poor. And you're like, yeah. Does that change what I'm doing? I'm doing no different to Pearl, another person who comes up in that edited video as an example, because she got demonetized and was in a position where she didn't have any money to pay all her staff. You know, like on the surface, she's got a couple of million subscribers. Ergo, she's doing all right. No, she had to move back in with her parents. And now she's trying to build that reputation back up after presumably getting the ability to actually monetize her own material. And she's kind of doing what I do. She's putting out loads of stuff, like 2, sometimes 3 videos daily. You're like, why? From a subscriber base of 2 million? Because she's still got to build back up her reputation after being demonetized. So long as you enjoy what you do, it doesn't matter if you're right at the bottom of the pecking order, just scraping by with, you know, in my case, 25 plus maybe 26,000 subscribers, or at the dizzying heights of a couple of million, as is the case with Pearl. Everyone still suffers their own turmoils on that journey. But what is the journey if you don't enjoy the process? It's not just about money. I'm far less money orientated than most people out there. And that means that I can actually reflect on the moment and realise the value in this moment now. Not the money that will come at the end of the month when YouTube pay me in 10 days from now, right? And have done for 10 or 12 years now, keeping the roof just about over my head. You know, it's about this bit, enjoying the moment with the people around you, the community that's been built. Even if the community doesn't like me very much at the moment because I'm calling them conspiratards and knocking them for being what they are, when I am that thing as well. You know, it's an interesting time, to say the least. But we don't have a subject to cover. So, like I say, I'm doing bits and
Yes,
bobs.
we do. You said we were going to do something today.
I'm sure I did, but I can't remember what. I was doing bits and bobs with the publisher and my wife as a consequence, who's now gone back to work and was like, well, you know, I'm doing overtime tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, I need some help on the book. I need you to do this. She's like, well, see if I can get the time to do it. I'm like, oh, how annoying. If I had more money, I could just keep paying her like I was doing when we were editing it. But like now, she's gone back to picking up bits and bobs of overtime to make her ends meet. And I haven't got extra money coming in from PayPal. If you did want to support me on PayPal, now's a good time, because there's still work to be done, which is frustrating. But by the same token, I've still enjoyed the process of making a book, and while I'm right at the tail end of it, I can even, because I'm like,
Sorry.
bloody hell, I can even at the tail end of the process look at that process while I'm still in it and go, yeah, I enjoyed that. That was good, right? The end product gives me the facility to make this happen more often. You know, hopefully you'll see me sat in this chair with this background on someone else's show talking about the book. And from that perspective, you know, that's being given to me as a facility. You know, it will facilitate me going out on the road and promoting the material. And that, to me, is something else that's not money, right? That's me doing the promotion to have an end that is money, but you're like, but that's, for me, that is the end. That's what I want. I want the facility to go out and say, yeah, I've got a product to promote. That's why I want to be in front of you. You know, it may not be the case that I get in terms of the exposure, the level that you'd hope when you go out on tour. You want to be in front of the biggest person. You want to be in front of Joe Rogan, right? That's the end, if you look at him as what he is, the biggest podcaster that there is currently. So you go, yeah, you want to be in front of that person if you're going to promote your stuff. But you might end up going in front of people that have got 1,000 subscribers, or Pearl, you know, with a couple of million subscribers. So you've got a full range of the biggest that there is to the smallest that there is, with someone right in the middle. You know, me, I'm right down there. I'm down at this end. But it doesn't matter. I still do the same thing, right? And those people, I'm sure it's not just about making money when they've already got a certain amount. So I remember, I think it was Jimmy Carr talking about this. He was asked about, you know, earning lots of money from his audience, a heckler. You'll understand the joke when I get to it, if I can remember that it was a heckler that asked him, you know, at what point does the money stop becoming important? And it's like, when you've got about 100 grand surplus. You know, once you've got that, you can have 200 grand, you can have $1 million, you can have a couple of million. But life doesn't really alter all that much from having about that sort of amount that you can, you know, utilise if you need to get a new car, if you need to fit a new kitchen, you know, if you need to do something, you've got some money to do it with. And having 10x that amount of money doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be any more happy. But the plateau that you can reach, in his estimation, at 100 grand is only to your detriment if you're below that. In other words, you're going to be more miserable if you haven't got that. But you can only reach a certain level. So you go, okay, well, when you look at someone like Joe Rogan, he's obviously a millionaire. He doesn't need to do any more podcasting. He could retire tomorrow. So why would he? Well, does he want a bigger boat or a bigger car? Well, maybe. That is an end that you can obviously motivate yourself with. You can say, oh, well, maybe if I do a few more shows, I can buy a Lamborghini. But that wouldn't be the main motivation for doing what he does. You know, when he talks, and you can see it in his sort of fond expression when he talks about being number one, that's a byproduct of him enjoying what he does and therefore producing good quality material. Now, as much as it might seem arrogant for me to compare myself to Joe Rogan, but I do feel as privileged as he when I sit here doing this. Maybe to a much more limited audience, but you're like, an audience is an audience. If you're strumming your guitar on your own in your bedroom, it's very different to being in a bar when there's 10 people and you've been paid 20 quid to sit on your stool and strum your guitar and sing a song. That's a totally different scenario. But is that the same as Queen playing to 80,000 people? Well, in many ways, yes. You've got an audience and you're producing material to entertain 10 or 10,000 people. Is it the same? In literal terms, well, no, there's a lot more pressure when you've got more people in front of you. I don't dispute that. But ultimately, they're the same job. You're doing the same thing. And like I say, because of that, I can feel privileged for being able to sit in this seat and figure out ways that I can go out and promote myself to continue doing it with things like the book. So we're very lucky, or I feel I'm very lucky as a YouTuber. May not be the biggest, but I'm definitely living the dream.
Yeah, 100,000, but that's got to remain 100,000 through your life, because you'll go right through that. And the other thing was, I think you were saying you wanted to talk about how we're going to go forward and disseminate this information about how it's measured. Something to that.
No, that's what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about why you care still. So the rhetoric, instead of looking at it from the most pragmatic approach, which is to say, if we're going to try and communicate something with somebody else, how do we go about doing that? Well, if the message is, as I said yesterday, that it's inconsequential, like a mile is what it is. It wouldn't matter if I'm putting it into practical application, using it. It doesn't matter. You know, a mile is just a horizontal distance measurement that you can take off a scale, put on a map, and know that the production of the map has implied this axiomatic principle of horizontal mile distances or kilometre distances, so that you can find your way around using these tools produced by measuring Earth's surface. Flat in all circumstances. That will happen regardless of whether or not we detach ourselves from the engineered argument of fart-sniffing Batman t-shirt wearing wankers who have ascribed too much value to the heliocentric paradigm versus pot-smoking hippies and conspiratards who have decided that they want to brace against their former religion of heliocentrism and being on a ball. Well, that false narrative of this person versus that person is completely separate from the geography, which exists in isolation, regardless of whether or not these groups exist battling it out about whether or not we're on a ball. Well, given that's the case, when you sort of transition out from this group that argues and debates about whether or not Earth's spherical, and you reach this in-between plateau, you kind of say, well, if the guys over there talking about geography and mapping and building and surveying and flying and navigating are all utilising and measuring flat Earth anyway, what difference is it going to make if I start talking about it? It won't. So therefore, with that in mind, I ask the question, why does someone like Neil, or when One Deck and Neil were discussing it, Neil and One Deck, concern themselves with going into various different forums to ascribe this information to the next man, when we, by my estimation at least, are quite inconsequential, much to the hatred of some of the people who are, I think they've all gone now, but were past tense deserting me when I call them conspiratards. You know, a failure to have an introspection about why you are in the position that you are in, arguing about whether or not Earth has sphericity, is highlighted and then becomes disturbing to the individual that's having it highlighted to them by me. But it doesn't alter the fact that there's still people within the community, us, in this case Neil and One Deck. And if you want to look at it from the point of view that I'm doing it right now with a show, forget that I've just said I just love having a YouTube show, and just say, well, why are you doing it to put the onus on me? Why do you feel it's necessary to tell next man that Earth's being dealt with in all circumstances and without exception as a flat plane when measured? And the answer is, I don't really know. That's a difficult question to answer. Maybe we can figure that out if I ask for the motivation from someone like Neil or someone like One Deck when they're wandering into Discord servers to say, why are you arguing about how the distance to the geometric horizon functions when distance is flat, and in order to calculate into existence this geometric bent globe Earth horizon, you've got to measure your height off a flat Earth and infer horizontal distance. You're utilising flat Earth prerequisites to have this argument about whether or not we've got a geometric horizon, or whether or not we're turning, or whether or not there's a gravitational attraction that gives you a downward vector perpendicular to a plane. All of it's requiring flat Earth prerequisites to have the argument, and it requires the individuals who Neil and One Deck were up against, or pointing this out to, that they all whistle past the flat Earth prerequisites that are having to be utilised and axiomatic in the principles of things like directionality, altitude, circles of equal elevation, distance, as I've already mentioned. 2, believe that you've got a sphere that you can then debunk. You've got to whistle past all of those flat Earth prerequisites to do it, which makes the entire process, back to why am I doing it then, folly. It's inconsequential to how Earth is actually measured. It's always being measured flat anyway. And you, fart-sniffing anti-flat earther, or you, fart-sniffing anti-glober, are going to be engaging in something that's a complete folly. You don't have any bearing on directionality, altitude, the surface level measurements, the sea level averaged, the distance in linear, horizontal terminology. None of these things are applicable to you or me as a YouTuber? What difference does it make if I assert how flat and linear distance is? Doesn't. I'm not making maps. So who cares? It's inconsequential. Back to the original point. Well, why do we do it then? Let's introspectively analyse, why are we doing what we do? When we tell the next man, you do realise you're using a flat earth prerequisite, distance is flat, or you do realise you're using a flat earth derivative, your altitude's measured off sea level, and your dip to a tangent point horizon is derived from eye level parallel with surface level. You need flat earth to be axiomatically held to be true in order to believe you're on a curve with a tangent point horizon. Why would you do such a thing? Why would you ignore the flat earth prerequisites? So why would you ask, Neil?
Okay, if you're doing a job and you know that somebody needs to use a hammer to hammer a freaking nail in, and they're trying to hammer it in with a freaking screwdriver, you go to help them, right? Simple.
Okay.
Makes
So
the
hold on,
job easier.
just stop, pause a sec. So if for the sake of argument you saw a singer on stage and you deemed her to be out of tune, that's that sort of comparison, Neil.
No.
No.
Bad comparison, my friend.
No.
There and there, this all started as a debate, correct? Everybody thought there was a debate.
There was a perception that there was a
Everybody-
debate, yes.
All right, so people are still in a debate when they shouldn't be, because we came across not new information that eluded us. So we naturally want to, hey, you're struggling with this over here. You're asking a guy to prove that the plane is rotating when he's using a flat earth to do it. Focus on what he's using, and then you can end this right here. No more struggle.
I mean, I was going to use the help example, to tell you the truth. You are sort of, I feel like you, because I've been tangled up in arguments and there's an argument and fighting and screaming at people about this for hours and days on end. And it's draining, and there's no need for it. So I think we just now we've realised it's so simple, just through basic measurements. We can just tell somebody, look, you're arguing at the moment about Coriolis, and then you're getting into atmosphere, which is an oxymoron, and gas particles and not taking any shape. And you're going to spend hours on that when what we're trying to determine is the shape of the Earth, or point out how it's just measured flat from the sea level. Sorry, I mean mean sea level.
Yeah, it's like using a freaking screwdriver to hammer in and out. You see them struggling, you see them sweating, you see them yelling and getting angry, and you're like, hey, buddy, look at this thing they invented. It's been around for a while. It's called a hammer. Well, the measurements have been around forever. That's how God made it. We're accurate, like one deck says, it was given to us. And that's how we constructed cities. That's how we built things. That's how we navigated. That's how we mapped. And it's all right there. Why are you struggling with getting a guy to prove the spin of the Earth that he's claimed? Trying to make it easy.
Okay, you're trying to make it easy for people that are in a pond that we've just crawled out of. So you're looking back over your right shoulder and seeing that there's all these people in the scummy pond still using hammers to screw something in with, or using a screwdriver to hammer something in with, in your example, right? Well, we've managed to crawl back up the hill onto a normie plateau and gone, wow, the whole plateau's flat, and every normie out there that ever measures this Earth that I'm now stood on at the top of the plateau rather than the ditch. But you're looking back at the ditch and going, look how many people are fighting in that ditch. We can make it easier. And you're throwing ropes back down to people who are going, what are you doing throwing a rope at me? In the middle of an argument here. You just want to end the argument, don't you?
Exactly. That's exactly what's going on. And the reason why I was thinking about this, it's a detriment to all of us if we're still in that same position.
We're not. They
It's
are.
affecting everybody.
We're not in that pit anymore, though. When we climb up and go, well, it's geography. You're in this pit where you think you're arguing for the righteous cause of science to prove we're not on a ball. or science to prove we're on a ball, when all of them are in a category error. They've been organised and orchestrated to be fighting with each other, and fighting from a position of ignorance if you're a flat earther, learning about heliocentrism where you didn't previously. You'd previously learned about 9/11 truth, or no forests on a flat earth truth, or Mandela effect truth. You know, then you come into heliocentrism, having been fed the information after your previous watching of a video about some conspiracy. And then the next thing you know, you're up against some dweeb who's really, really irate about you knowing how the ball does work. And then you find that out and start figuring out how they've given you information that doesn't actually work. And so goes the process in the pit, in the trench. We used to even call it in the trenches. You're like, hang on, let's just climb out this trench a second. Hold on, there is no man's land. It's a flat plateau with all normies measuring, navigating, charting, flying and building on a flat earth without a care or leave. Now, don't get me wrong. You can go up to one of those normies and go, hi there. I noticed you're travelling in a northward direction with a flat earth compass in a flat earth mile. Why would you do that if you think you're on a ball? And they go, we are on a ball, north's at the top. Suddenly you've dug a trench in front of them. And you're like, well, why? You know, the geography continued without you ruining that guy's day and digging him a trench and throwing him down and going, slide your way onto those people down there. They're all fighting about this. Tell them how north's up. Tell them how it's the top of the globe. While you're navigating your way back out this trench we've just dug for you. You're like, we've got to at some point cut the losses of these people and go, okay, while it was fun for 10 years, standing shoulder to shoulder with people who had very important conspiracies to tell you about, and they also believed, as you believed, that Earth is flat, we don't have a belief in a flat Earth anymore. And the measurements are used by everyone. So it's not like I find myself associating more with normies than I do with anti-flat earthers or anti-globers, formerly known as flat earthers.
Yeah, but you're still finding, like we just said, these so-called flat earthers are still arguing about, you know, star rotations, the behaviour of gas, atmosphere moving with the spinning of the Earth, which is atmosphere is an oxymoron. So even the flat earthers, they'll spend hours talking about that. We're just trying to say, listen, you don't need to talk about any of that. You're just wasting your time. I mean, you can do if you want to, but if you're just talking about the measurements, it's just from sea level, elevation above it, you know, elevation angles to and from Polaris using sea level for latitude. It's that simple. You don't have to mither yourself with anything else.
I'll give you another example. Every heliocentrist is on the same page of what heliocentrism is. I'm not talking about the anti-ones that got into this and they changed their rhetoric and switched it around to fit what they believe, right? But they're all on the same page. And here all of a sudden you got flat earthers on a show saying, no, nobody can get pitch data. But, I mean, it's like contrary. It's like, are we in unison? If you got flat earthers over here talking about it's just a measurement, and flat earthers on the other side holding globes to prove their claims of a spinning earth, and then decrying what we do and say nobody's measured earth, like I'll just throw my hands up to the Almighty and say I have no idea. And we've referenced Job 38, a line across the earth. So, yeah, we're saying it's measured flat. We're not giving you the full dimensions of Earth. We never said we knew the full dimensions of Earth. So there's a problem.
Yeah, so what you're suggesting is the people in the pit, when you say, well, it's just measured flat, what you're saying is when we measure Earth's surface, one aspect of the measurement is the axiomatic requirement for Earth's flatness. Just to be really pedantic and specific about what we're saying. Now, having said that, there's no response. But if you just say Earth's measured flat, which is still identifying the exact same aspect of measurement, they respond with, well, how big is it? No. Flat isn't a description of size. It's a measurement of aspect. Flatness is not a distance in kilometres. Now, by pure chance because it's directly connected to Earth measurement and all roads do always lead to a flat Earth, miles are also, as a distance measurement, flat. That's horizontal, linear in nature. That's what they are. So if we're going to describe any surface of Earth that's been measured, we will describe it in the flat Earth prerequisite description that miles have attached to them. That is to say, Earth's measured flat in miles. Again, if you're screaming that down at the pit, they go, well, how many miles? I don't know. I've got England, and it's very thoroughly measured by the Ordnance Survey. It's all flat in linear miles, and you can even describe deviations from those flat measured miles in distance terminology to give you deviations in the vertical aspect from a measured flat average called sea level. So you have to have the axiomatic principle of miles remain flat if you're going to describe deviations from it. It's called an elevation profile. If you look it up on a Google mapping piece of software or equivalent, that's how it'll be described. You can't decide that you don't like how flat Earth must be and is measured in miles. That's how it is measured. That's not an argument, and it's not just me saying it, and it has no bearing if I've done it. What we have is an Earth that's measured flat in miles. Response, how big is the entirety of the known surface of Earth? I don't know, I'm not a cartographer, but what I do know is the maps that have been produced, if to be taken as accurate, have measured with concepts like miles. Now, you can say they're not accurate. I don't care. I haven't made them. I just know what a mile is, and if you're going to apply it in any way to any map that's claimed to be accurate, it'll have a flat scale for the flat linear miles that have been measured. Now, you can say, you didn't measure them accurately. Okay, do you want to give us a different convention? Because both miles and kilometres are flat and linear. So there's no other convention you can use. Without question and without exception, Earth can only be measured with these conventions flat. But it's not an argument. It's a principle of measurement when it comes to Earth, that Earth is flat. So this isn't disputable. But the cries from the pit, what I call the pool of scum, is to ask a non sequitur, a red herring. How big then? Big. We're talking about aspects of flatness. Your derived curve comes from that flat aspect when you measure altitude from sea level or distance in miles to infer tangent points by deriving a dip angle from what? Horizontal eye level? Parallel with surface level? Yeah, every axiomatic principle that you will employ to believe you're on a ball requires this aspect, not size, of Earth to be flat. That's how it is measured for you with your stupid ball belief and anybody who maps or surveys the terrain that's being mapped and surveyed. It is and can only be flat, precisely as measured. You and me don't have to like it. What are you going to do? Say, well, miles curve? No. You can't describe deviations in the vertical from an axiom that is required to be horizontal if miles bend. If they did bend, you'd need a different convention to describe how much they deviated from horizontal when they bent. They don't. Ultimately, all we're hearing is detractors who don't understand the axiomatic principles utilised in Earth measurement, decrying them like they have a consequence. Leave them in the pit. What, are you about to produce a new conception like miles? You're not. And then why are you asking me about this? Who cares? Are you about to produce a more accurate map with something, again, other than miles, because you're going to have to employ horizontality in the linear distance? That's what distance, in this case miles, is. Unless you've got something new to offer, what you say in that pit of scum versus scum, conspiratard fart sniffers versus bull-believing fart sniffers, is utterly inconsequential to the axioms that are applied to Earth by everyone who ever measured it. They're employed to stop planes flying into it. They're used to find directionality and azimuth when you're in a boat. If you lose your position, you can use extrapolations from flat Earth angle measurements to the stars to find your position with areas of equal altitude. Everything about navigating, building, flying, sailing, everything is based on these principles. Miles are flat. You don't have to like it. And why are we concerned about people who've taken it upon themselves Don't get me wrong, this is us in past tense. To argue about it in some scummy little pond. Sod that. I don't need to do that no more. And I don't care about making these people's lives easy. They just slap your hand. I've heard it. I've had it up to here. I'm putting my hand in a orientation that's perpendicular to the horizontal measured in altitude. I've had it up to here with these people that tell you you're just trying to stop the debate. Well, my show's named after the process that people will still engage in regardless. It's just we've got the silver bullet, the end of the argument. I get that it makes you redundant. You can't lord it over next man as being so intellectually superior to them because you found out the secret knowledge of the secret flat earth and how they're all lying to us about us being in space. I'm like, nah. Yeah, I do rob you of that when I point out that every normie who ever used a map understood implicitly how flat distance will be. It's on the scale. It's a principle of what a mile is. It goes without saying that Earth is flat. There's no other way to describe it. There's no other way to measure it. And measure it, we absolutely have. When I say we, I haven't, you haven't, none of the people in the pit arguing about it have. None of them have got any consequence when it comes to it. So, yeah, we need to move on with identifying geography. We've stepped out of the incorrectly named science category and into the simple geometry and geography of Earth. It is flat. You don't have to like it.
That was well said. And you know what? You know what I think it is? One second, and I'll let you have the floor. I think you're right. I think what you really have to do is just not go there. I've experienced that with the other thing going on. I just don't want to listen. Just shut it down, shut it off, and then I don't feel like I have to defend anything, and then I don't feel like I have to help anybody. I just don't go in. Just shut it down and do what we do here on a daily basis. And that's it.
Yeah, just well said, Nathan. I was just picking up on the red herrings, and even I've been in a situation where you're pointing out latitudes, a flat Earth elevation angle measurement taken from sea level, and they'll even agree with that. But then they want to argue about, well, how was latitude measured in the southern hemisphere? When they just realised it is an elevation angle measurement to start with. You've got to start arguing about that or proving a point of how that was measured after the equator, when you can't get an angle measurement to Polaris due to angular change with distance.
Well, that's what Nathan says. Leave the pit. I agree. I left the pit. But sometimes you get curious, bored on a Saturday, what's going on over there? And you know what's going on over there. You know it, one deck. When you go in there, you know what's going on. And so do I when I pop in there. I know exactly what I'm going to hear. So why do I do it? That's it. I'm not no more. That's it. I shut it down. It's a waste of freaking time. And it just gets your blood boiling because you're not, nobody's catching on. And it's for reasons that, like Nathan said, they can't be the guru now. They can't be the smart one.
Yeah,
you can't tell me that the penny hasn't dropped for them. You can't tell me. I know a few of the people there. They're smart people. You can't tell me they don't know. They do, but there's a motive.
Yeah, to be the winner in the prize fight, if that's how it can be positioned, and it has been. It's us versus them. Divide and rule. Well, if the us and them are arguing, there's going to be somebody who comes out in the so-called debate, the intellectually superior. And that's what I hate to say it because they're the people who've past tense deserted me. It's cost me. And there's been a few times that I've done this. I've had to cut ties with people because they're peddling nonsense based on pseudoscience like ether, or scamming people in the case of Jaren, and then projecting that straight back onto me. There's going to be various different communities that you end up severing because they've been brainwashed into the belief that we've got etheric free power or whatever it is that they're peddling. Now you go, okay, well, in that case, you don't want to be associated with con men. Now, if you're trying to point out where they've got this sunken cost into their rhetoric and how it's wrong, you can appreciate that they're not going to initially be receptive to that. They're going to brace against it. But it doesn't alter the fact that when you're peddling bullshit with the same exact magic trick of utilising science to perpetuate your rhetoric, you know better than the people that you're claiming to want to destroy when you say that you're going to lead the world into truth with flat Earth. No, you're not. If you cared about the truth, you wouldn't be using the same magic tricks of suggesting that you've got evidence that's scientific when you haven't. Now, when you point these things out for the greater good of truth, you're going to end up detaching yourself from certain communities. The most recent one being the conspiracy of flat earth community, and saying you, unfortunately, are detrimental to a perceived cause you have because it isn't a cause. If you win and convince the guy you're debating with that you're correct about Earth in your belief being flat, it won't alter how the normie applies a mile. It won't alter how elevation is described, or how sea level is measured, or how flight level keeps people from smashing into the ground. That isn't going to change how somebody descends towards the flat surface when they calculate a descent with a triangle. None of these things are being altered by you. And it's even more egregious when the exact same people start telling you how you need to understand how the sun's controlled by lodestones, or that the trees were silicon giants. You're like, whoa. No, we've gone from having an absolute stone-cold fact that everybody on all sides of the so-called discussion must accept. You can't just relinquish miles as being flat. They're utilised frequently in heliocentric rhetoric and calculations. So you can't just relinquish them. But when you appreciate that, you're like, well, what was the argument about again? If you must accept that we have to gather up data points, that's measurements, from the surface, that's Earth, and they are flat and only ever capable of being measured that way, then why are we arguing about whether or not it's flat? Oh, because you have got a heliocentric belief and you believe the magic trick of science, and you who are opposing it are going to use the same trick to say we're going to get free energy at the end. I don't want to be around you. You're just a conspiratard. So it does mean that we will, over the course of 12 years, and have over the course of 12 years, relinquished various different people who ascribe themselves to a so-called group called Flat Earth. The most recent severance is from the fart sniffers, who have spent 12 years becoming heliocentric experts. Now, I remember about 3 years ago saying this, that we had trained ourselves as heliocentric experts, and I said we should label ourselves as such. And it got a lot of pushback. I don't want to be known as a heliocentric expert, because then I'm comparable to the people we're bracing against. I'm like, now here we are 3 years later, you are absolutely comparable. You're Batman t-shirt wearing anti-globers, sniffing your own farts, because you've learned all about how heliocentrism doesn't work. Well, to know something doesn't work, somebody in a debate who needs to be able to counter their opponent's position should be capable of arguing the opponent's position more effectively than their opponent. That is to say, to win, you need to know your opponent's position better than they do. That's all flat earthers have done. They've trained themselves in being really good at debate by learning how heliocentrism works. And now we've got a load of tossers on our own so-called flat earth side, flexing their muscles because they know so much about heliocentrism and how it doesn't work, to the point where you get so-called flat earthers saying to globe-believing normies, well, do you know how fast Earth's supposed to be spinning? You're like, what? We need to run from these people as quickly as humanly possible.
Well said again, Nathan. Yeah, you're on form today, mate.
All right, get me an extinguisher. Oh, am I right?
Yeah.
Shall we?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's the topic of the day, figuring out why you guys want to flex your muscles. When I'm saying we need to run away from these people, how can you describe yourself as any better if you're finding your way to these servers that employ the notion that there is still a debate to be had, when that simply is not the case for us? There's a perception of a debate and it continues to rage. So why? You said you won't do it, but that isn't answering the question. Saying, all right, I see the error. I see the futility, not error. Therefore, I won't do it again. Why do it in the first place?
I'm outside. I missed the last bit. Yeah, I think what we were saying earlier, when me and Neil have been in recently, I don't know, we've just discussed all this. I think...
Try again, you're breaking up.
I anti-flat earthers, just sort of reaching out a little bit and saying, you know, I've just said all this before, but like you say, we were doing it with our so-called flat earth people that we know.
Indeed. I mean, I think we will, over the course of the next year, maybe, figure out how to put this into a decent rhetoric that's beneficial to the guy that, in the example that I got as an answer from Neil and One Deck, it sounds like they want to help people. You know, the metaphor of somebody using a screwdriver to hammer a nail in is a fair answer, I suppose, because it gives me an idea of where we can move directionally from here, direction being horizontal. But by metaphor, in the terms of the direction of the show, you know, Neil, in this particular example, feels that he needs to help those who are still in the pit. Now, when those who are in the pit have told you, no, they want to fight, and what you're doing puts an end to it, therefore negative. Like, what? We were being told that we wanted silver bullets in the flat earth camp, that we needed something that would just end the argument immediately. And when it's on the table, here we go, argument ended. It's all being measured flat for everyone, always and without exception. Done. Jobs are good. And that's the end of the debate. Me saying that is the silver bullet. What's that? I can't say that because it draws an end to the debate, and that's not what you want. Stay in the piss. And stay away from me. But yeah, you're finding your way back to the pit, Neil. Friday night,
Yeah,
time to fight.
You know, you're bored. Sometimes you're bored and you know what's going on in the pit. That's what I was saying. We know exactly. When we go in there, One Deck, you know. When you go in there, you know what we're going to hear. I mean, now there are times, like I said the other day, when a guy was using your analogy of freaking other worlds, right? How they look beyond the horizon. So you do get surprised. And you know, you walk away with a little pep in your step that people are listening. There are some that are latching on and using it, but you know what you're going to get when you go there. So my answer is this: even if I'm bored, I'm not going to go in a mosh pit anymore. I'm just going to wind up getting hit with an elbow.
Right, there's 42 people watching this live stream. I'm just going to do a quick call to action. Just bear with me one sec. So if you are watching this live, there's only 42 of you, which is pretty dire in terms of numbers for this particular show. Please share the show. There's a share button somewhere about here. Just click it, and then within a couple more clicks, you can put it on your favourite social media site, be it Bebo or MySpace or whatever it is you kids use these days. So yeah,
That
please share the show.
number makes me worry a little bit.
What makes you worry?
That number. How many?
42.
45, that's it?
Yeah, it's not great, but that's one of the reasons why I want to have a book come out, so I can go out and encourage others on other platforms to not only talk to me, but obviously promote my book, so that generates more of a revenue for me. But moreover, that process itself exposes what we do to the plateau of normies that I was describing earlier. So I can only hope that that is the case moving forward, that people will start in probably the next week to 10 days receiving press releases from me about having me on their show to talk about the book. Now, that will just generate a discussion about Earth being measured flat in more general terms. And like I say, that will, as I was discussing on yesterday's after show, if you remember, you'll hopefully have heard this already, talking about how that will generate your average normie to recognise that there's an open door here and think, well, I want to walk in and tell these idiots that they don't understand that there's a just distance to geometric horizon at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's measured height off a flat Earth measurement called mean sea level. They just don't understand. And we'll have people who come in with very old school rhetoric, again, because they've been exposed in a very moderate way to me on someone's show promoting my book.
Sometimes you've got to take a step back to take two steps forward. You know, like you say, we're at this point in time where things are sort of developing and changing. We're on top of the flat plateau, looking at the rest of the people wriggling around in the pond. But in time, this might be like, it will grow again and people will realise the error of the ways, and our work has always been measured flat. There's no argument, there's no debate, and we can still move on and talk about these issues. And have fun, and the show goes on.
Indeed. So yeah, smash that share button if you are watching live. Share. And yeah, a very warm welcome to all of you who are actually here. Good to have you all. Please smash the super chat to support this channel. Yeah, so in this interim period, like I say, I'm back to a little bit of grindstone work on the book, which is frustrating, but I kind of should have realised that when sending it off to the publisher, that it wouldn't just be as simple as, well, now it's out. You know, there is still work to be done, which is a little bit annoying, but, you know, part of the course. It just builds up the anticipation, that extra notch. I'm like that wedding guest that's arrived 20 minutes late, and it's like, oh, the bride's still not here. No, we're still waiting for her. Yeah, the pianist has been playing for quite some time. And you're like, well, will she come at all? I had a couple of people who've said that in comments. They're like, no book then. I don't think there's going to be one. You're like, oh, right, okay. Fair enough. And it's a bit like that at that wedding. Is the bride going to turn up? You've talked a lot about getting married to her, but I don't see her in a big plump dress. Where is she? It just builds up the anticipation. Fashionably late, they call it. So yeah, so that's what I'll be doing as soon as we round out this live show, probably.
So what are they going to say when they do see the bride and she's stunning?
Pretend she's not there. Pretend we don't see her. Nah. A lot of people who are in the congregation at the time would just go, oh, there'll be a big gasp.
No, what I've heard was the bride's been stolen. That bride belonged to somebody else. How dare you?
The bride's been kidnapped. No, I mean, in the case of me, this book that's coming out has gone through 9 drafts, the 5th of which was stolen by 2 thieving bastards who offered me help as editors and then decided that they wanted to be authors. And when they requested co-authorship of my book, because they'd got the only copy of the Word document that they were working on as a favour to help me support my family, they turned around and said, we'll keep it unless you give co-authorship. So I fired both of them and removed them from the group. So yes, there is a certain element of thievery. Like I was explaining on yesterday's show, it's not always about the money. Sometimes it's about stolen valour. Sometimes you want to take credit for things that other people have done. And in order to do that, if you haven't got enough meat around your own bones, is you can steal the skeleton or carcass from someone else, the scraps, in this case my 5th draft, and publish that with a load of crappy padding around it. So yes, there's going to be a certain amount of scorn poured on material that is in essence mine, developed and adapted so that it can appear to belong to someone else who's stolen from me. Thieving bastards. But yes, that doesn't mean the bride's not coming to the wedding. It means that there was a point during the engagement where someone held hostage the bride. But yeah, like I say, I said this earlier, this is actually part of the book. So when the book comes out, you'll flick to, I think it's the second to last chapter, called Betrayal, and you'll read about various different instances where I, as the main author of my own bloody story, yeah, I mean, like I say, you might go out there and read copycat versions of stolen material that I've produced and go, you know what, this Betty woman talking about housekeeping questions that are just slightly rephrased, like they're the Mexican equivalent of the housekeeping questions. Okay, this all sounds very familiar. Or not, if you're unfamiliar with me, which is most people. But yeah, the bride was kidnapped about however many months, I think it's about 8 months ago, 7 months ago. Yeah, my book, if you want to compare her by analogy to being a bride, she was being held hostage. Yeah? It was like one of those assassination movies. I think it's, I can't remember the name of the film with Bridget Fonda. I think it might have been one of the Godfather movies where Bridget Fonda's being held hostage by a couple of goons. And the
Godfather 3. Andy Garcia comes out in a red robe, yeah.
And he goes, shoot her. Yeah, I don't care about that bitch. Shoot her. That was me. Keep it. You thieving bastards. Yeah, I'll have to start again. Yeah, I've lost a lot of time, but you're getting fired. What's that? You want co-authorship? No, you're getting the sack. Not co-authorship, you're getting fired. Well, what's that? You'll take your 5th draft with me? You. Yes, I know, yes. Yeah, you'll still steal from me. in spite of me firing you under the guises that you thought you'd get co-authorship? No, you didn't. You got sacked. And then you were expelled from the group by me, the one who created it. And you. Your group's my group. I expelled you from that too, didn't I? I remember the shock and awe. He's expelled me from my own group. It wasn't your group, it was mine. That's why you got expelled from it. You just didn't realise you thought you'd developed that group. Yeah, like you thought you'd written my story and then you had to superimpose Betty on it. I've had a bit more feedback in that regard. People are like, it makes no sense. The authors are talking about themselves from the third person, from some spinster's point of view. It makes absolutely no sense. So it's garbage. Stripped away the only decent thing about my fifth draft. Me. Replaced it with some crappy spinster's story about you self-indulgent fart-sniffing thieves. Very amusing.
Well, according to a letter that you wrote about how this book will not be surpassed thanks to the editing process and Adam Meakin and Quantum Eraser, that's a big thing, that and separates them from editing the authors. You can't make it up.
Yeah, whatever, I don't care. The justification from a couple of thieves who've held ransom a bride-to-be, my book by metaphor, is inconsequential really after the fact. It just becomes an interesting chapter. And I said this about a month after. Yes, it was painful when someone who's offered you help stabs you in the back and steals from you. But after the fact, I was like, all you've done is generated a good ending to the book. Now, it didn't end up being the ending of the book. It ended up being, sort of 90% towards the end of the book, as opposed to the ending. The ending, as I've already described on several shows, is about Edgar Raven. I can't remember what I've given this person as a fake name. And if I give a real name, it'll then give a game away that I don't want to give away. These people have had substitute names given to them to protect the innocent, you understand. But in that particular instance, it's a story of somebody who's measuring distances to relays over in Ferrari, Italy. Well, prior to that, 2 or 3, I can't remember how many, whatever, chapters prior, is me describing various people that have betrayed me. This is one particular instance. So it's just going to become part of the story of Flat Earth debate, where certain individuals decide that my story's their story, to the point where they offer help with my story to help me support my family financially because I'm very poor, and then end up stealing my material. Well, that's gone into the book. Now, that is the story, because that's the reality of what has happened. Now, it's terrible. It's meant that I've suffered financial detriment, and it meant that 2 people have been excluded from a group that they were part of and respected within. Now they're just deemed thieves, because they are. Like I say, all they've done is taken my story, housekeeping questions, and put a thin veneer of a third party writing about them with their names on the book as authors. You're like, it makes no sense, lads. Your book's shite. You know that, right? All you did was take something that was potentially excellent and then make it absolute garbage and tarnished. All you're ever going to get accused of is thieving my material, because you did. Terrible, really. That's the way. That's their legacy.
Weeks.
You wouldn't have pegged it a few months back, like a year ago. Would you have ever said that the legacy would be these 2 people described as thieves accurately? No, but that is the legacy. In trying to maintain their own quote-unquote swan song, they've branded themselves as thieves. Oh well, you got fired and got branded as thieves for your treachery.
But when you measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken, we just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat earth king of rhyme.